And here we go with Robert Nauer, Unfiltered, once again, another topic of current events. Not only in the state of Florida, but in every state in the Union and overseas in our territories. And since the pandemic, our food prices have skyrocketed. They're out of sight, just like home prices. And there's no real reason. Farmers didn't stop farming during the pandemic. People who worked on farms didn't stop during the pandemic. They were considered critical sources. Nothing stopped. Maybe some building supplies, but farm food and cattle didn't stop. None of that stopped. And yet, why have food prices in America gone up over 200 to 300%? Now, you know, the bullshit that we get out of the Bureau of Labor and Statistics out of Department of Labor has said, oh, well, the inflation has only gone up 5.7% or 10%, say, on eggs. We all know that is bullshit, because since the start of the pandemic and before it, we were only paying $1.87 for a dozen of eggs. There are some places in the United States right now that are paying $8.50 for a dozen eggs. That is just, is that crazy? Well, they say a part of it was due to the bird flu and that they had to kill so many chickens because of the way in America we raise chickens. And to some degree, that may be true. Same thing with beef prices. They said, well, we had to kill and sell off so many cattle because we just couldn't get the feed and other things to feed them. But that doesn't explain vegetables. It doesn't explain a lot of things that we eat, that we buy from Publix, Safeway, Kroger's, etc. Avocados. Avocados have gone up from 50 cents a piece to $1.50 a piece. Eggs have gone up from $1.87 to $8.50 and even higher. Milk, that used to be $1.70 a half gallon, in some cases is $3 a gallon. And you and I both know when we go to the grocery store and we look and do comparisons with the current prices and the past, we all know, we're not stupid. We all know that prices have doubled. So now, when Kroger's, who has bought up Safeway and a couple other stores, comes out and says, oh, by the way, Kroger's made $5 billion in pure profit, not cost of operations, but pure profit in the last 12 months. You know pretty well that they are greedy bastards, that they are greedy, and their shareholders and the company itself and the people who run Kroger's and Publix and everybody else are greedy bastards because they've raised prices so much. It's not necessarily because the prices that have been passed on to them have been raised so much substantially by their suppliers. That's just not the case. In a few rare instances it is. But Coca-Cola doesn't cost any more, and yet Coca-Cola is more expensive. Soft drinks and bottled products are more expensive than they were prior to the pandemic. The cost of operations, the process hasn't changed. The cost of ops hasn't changed. So why is everything that you buy at a grocery store in America so goddamn expensive now? It's making it nearly impossible for a middle class and a poor family to survive other than to eat crap. The rich don't give a shit because the rich got richer under Trump. Rich that have violated IRS rules aren't being prosecuted. And that's all another story. But food prices are so outrageously high that most Americans can't even afford to eat well if they make their own food at home, because the cost of food to buy in a grocery store, especially the non-processed stuff, the vegetables, the onions, the green beans, the carrots, and everything else are so goddamn expensive. And Congress hasn't done one goddamn single thing. Not one goddamn thing has Congress done to protect the American people. And I don't give a shit about the rich. The rich don't give a shit about anybody else but themselves. Bill Gates doesn't give a shit about you. He's bought up Ecolab and everything else with his billions of dollars. And the money that he gave his wife when he left, that was nothing to him when you're a multi-billionaire. But we, the middle class and the poor of America, can barely afford to eat at home, let alone eat out at, say, McDonald's or Burger King or Culver's or Chick-fil-A. My wife and I ate the other day at Five Guys. Now, Five Guys, when it first started, it's a Washington, D.C. firm. Five Guys started out up in the Washington, D.C. area, and they've sold many franchises all over the country. Five Guys used to be a fairly reasonable place when it first started. I could go in and get a hamburger for $2.95, and it was a decent hamburger. Do you know that today they want nearly $8 goddamn for the same $2.95 hamburger that I used to get 5 years ago? That's bullshit. That's nothing more than greed. That is all that is. And the corporate headquarters are the ones that establish the prices, not the franchisees. Burger King, McDonald's, they're all increasing their prices. And they are not. And I wouldn't probably have a problem with it if they were paying their workers $15 an hour, which some said that they were going to do. There are some McDonald's, however, I will admit, that are paying higher wages now as opposed to the past. But the bulk of them are not. The bulk of them have not raised their wages one iota, and yet they have doubled and tripled the price of the sodas and the hamburgers and the French fries they sell, if you're talking fast food. Most other places that you might go to eat a nicer dinner has raised their prices $2 to $3 on what used to be $2 to $3 less. Have a friend of ours that's a single mother that took her 3 sons out to eat at Five Guys just last week here in the Villages, Florida, where most elderly people, wealthy people over 55 come to live in the United States. She walked out of Five Guys, just taking her 3 sons and herself out to what she thought was a cheap meal. It was $55 for all of them to eat. $55 to eat hamburgers? Are you fucking shitting me? Really? What I'm saying to you is, how does anybody live in America anymore? Used to be, and in some countries, like say Ecuador is a very nice country, very well managed, doesn't have strife, has a good stable economy. Ecuador has a national law that does not allow its businesses to raise prices. Prices in Ecuador are capped for gasoline, for food, medicinals, and other things. And even their housing costs are substantially better than anything in America. So how is it that some countries, the legislatures, like in Ecuador, can give a shit about their populace and care about taking care of their people, when America, our Congress, doesn't give a shit one way or another about its people? Our Congress gives more concern for building weapon systems, selling weapon systems, and going to war than it has ever cared about the medical, the food, the health of its American citizens. And I'm a former military officer, folks, so don't say I'm not patriotic. I served my time. The reality is America cares more about the wealthy in America than it does the bulk of its population, the people who serve the wealthy. Our Congress, for the most part, are all made up of millionaires. Almost all of them are millionaires. The Democrats, however, in Congress have cared to try to care about people. And like George Carlin said in one of his last comedy skits before he died, he said, simple differences between the left and the right and the Democrats and the Republicans is that the Democrats truly do care about people. I believe that. That's why I left the Republican Party and became a Democrat myself as a military officer. The GOP, the Republicans, they don't give a shit. The only thing the GOP and the senators and congressmen give a shit about is money, assets, and property, and maintaining that. People couldn't give a rat's ass about taking care of people. So if anybody should overthrow the government and take over the government, it should be the Democrats, because at least, for God's sakes, the Democrats give a shit enough about the American people and their way of life to make sure that it's good, everlasting, and long for all of us, both with food, health care, transportation, drinking water, sewers, and schools. Do you honestly think that the Republicans give one rat's ass about the quality of schools? Shit, no, because they send all their children to private schools and charter schools. I'm a child of public school system, and I turned out very well. I am ashamed to see that our Congress and the Republicans care so little about the American people, about how we eat, how we take care of health care for the middle class and the poor. Where do they think that the workers of the future are going to come from if they don't start taking care of all of us? So next time you go out to eat, I want you to add up your bill for you, your husband, your spouse, your friend, your children, and see what that tab comes to. Then I want you to stop going out to eat. I want you to stop. I want every American to stop going out to eat. I want you to take your lunch to work. Do you know that if you take your lunch to work, when I was a federal worker, and I was a very senior federal worker too, and I retired with a very good income, every